Hoje, bom dia a todos, para começar, né? Hoje a gente vai ter uma reunião bem diferente. O tema da reunião de hoje é sobre o teatro como uma nova forma de intervenção para a população asiática, e uma discussão intercontinental. Né? Quem vai ser a apresentadora dessa discussão é a professora Eunice Yuen. Ela é psiquiatra da infância e adolescência do Hospital de New Haven, na Universidade de Yale, é professora assistente da Universidade de Yale, fundadora do Chat Together, um programa voltado para a cultura e a família, que usa o teatro interativo como uma ferramenta educacional para promover o bem-estar emocional de crianças e adultos. Junto com ela, podem ver que tem outras pessoas na tela. Temos a Elizabeth Lee, que é uma quartanista da Faculdade de Medicina de Yale. Temos a Jane Cao, que é uma psiquiatra, ela está cursando a residência de psiquiatria da infância e adolescência no Hospital de Georgetown, também é membro do Chat Together. Também temos o Júlio, que também está residente em psiquiatria de Yale. E temos a Alicia, que é uma estudante de medicina de Mount Sinai e também é membro do Chat Together. Além disso, quem vai participar dos comentários vai ser a professora Luciana, conhecida nossa, né? É uma pós-graduanda aqui do programa de pós-graduação aqui do Instituto de Psiquiatria da Faculdade de Medicina da USP, e é colaboradora do ProSol, aqui também no IPQ. E, além disso, temos a presença da Paulina Yao Cho, que é formada pela Tsinghua University com mestrado em assuntos globais, pela Universidade de São Paulo, bacharelado em Direito, é membro do Michoso, um coletivo dedicado a investigar e elaborar as experiências da diáspora coreana no Brasil, membro da Casa do Povo, que é um centro cultural que revisita e reinventa as noções de cultura e comunidade e memória. E, em 2020, fundou a editora Cassandra, que é uma editora independente que visa tornar os ensaios feministas acessíveis aos brasileiros. Então, temos um super time. A Emi, a gente está esperando que ela consiga participar. Ela foi convocada para um trabalho do qual ela não podia deixar de fazer. Então, ela deve aparecer mais ou menos no meio da reunião. Então, é isso. Can we start, Professor Eunice?
All right. Well, thank you so much for the introduction. I mean, that is so happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me and my team. How cool it is, this is a grand round presentation, international and cross-continent to learn about. I'm so humbled to be here to share our work from United States, and also I am ready to learn more about how similar work has been done in Brazil. So good morning, and everyone, welcome everyone today. So here, some of the outline I'm trying to address in the next hour or so. I'm going to share about what we learned about from COVID-19 pandemic and Asian American mental health during this period of time, and some challenges in working with Asian American patient and family. And then I will also want to take the time to introduce our group called Yale Chat Together, Compassionate Home Action Together, that we have been founded this group since pandemic, addressing cultural informed care for Asian American family. And today we actually will be really interactive. We have two actors who will live perform a skit, namely Parents Got All the Solutions. So this is the theater as an intervention addressing Asian American mental health, and that will highlight a lot of the discussion point, followed by a cross-continent panel discussion about what we learn from our side and learn about from your side. I look forward for that discussion. And afterward, we do some Q&A, discussion, and survey, and that will be this morning agenda. All right, next slide, please. So before I talk about what we learned about from pandemic and mental health for Asian American, I guess I want to set up the stage here. You know, today we are here to learn how to be a better clinician, to take care of our patient and family. Some of the topic could be involved in some historical context, some maybe like could be provoking for many of us, and you know, like topic related to political opinion or things like that will be beyond the scope of the discussion. Is also not my expertise as well. So just want to set the stage here. All right, next slides, please. So what we learned from pandemic, from the US side, I think like many of us are familiar with this, you know, it really provoked many disturbing feelings, big emotions about stereotype against Asian descent family, as like some historical context since 1800. Asians are labeled as like dirty, disease, the term of yellow peril, as a threat to the US. That is the picture being shown on the left. And moving to 1950s, the yellow peril term was replaced by model minority. As you see in the Times Magazine, all these like wonderful Asian American kids, they name as wizards kids with all the carrying books, computer, like wearing thick glasses, and you know, good at getting good grades and academic pursuits, and name being model minority. It's sounding like not as bad as racial slur, but like it really have a harmful impact on many Asian American in terms of erasing many of the interethnic differences among Asian. As we know, the term we use here called AAPI, Asian American Pacific Islander, which is extremely diverse, heterogeneous population. And it really across the board covers so diverse socioeconomic status, but using the term of model minority, it really erasing the heterogeneity of the AAPI population. It also set up a deceiving contrast from other minority in the US as well, that it's kind of hard for us to ally with other minorities. It's also having that message, a harmful message there too. Not to mention it minimizes the impact of racism as discrimination to Asian American, as if it does not matter, but indeed it matters so much. And that question kind of really at the forefront during the pandemic. Next slide, please. So this is what happened, what we think during pandemic in the US, when model minority, the terminology quickly become yellow peril again. As across the globe, we know pandemic has massive disruption, create a massive disruption to everyone's life. Psychologically, we are looking for ways to have the intents of fear, rages to many of our losses. And many of us may have like maladaptive projection for these feelings by finding someone to blame. It's like a maladaptive projection for emotion. And many of us, we see that in US, like we know the fact that virus is from Wuhan, China, and the target is easily to blame all the Chinese people and eventually generalize to all Asians. That's what we see in the US. And of course, as I said today, we're not talking about politics, but like many of our leaders in the US, we use the term of Chinese virus or Kung flu. Many of this really stigmatizing terminology directly reinforce the racial stereotyping to the public, like making it as okay and validating that cycle there, which is really harmful cycle. Next slide, please. This is one of the organization in the US called Stop AAPI Hate. And we received like national report for more than 10,000 hate incidents against Asian descent women, the weaker group of Asian women, children, and elderly across the coastal city like San Francisco, New York City, in all these public spaces, subway, street, school, and internet, which is quite alarming. Next slide, please. And as we know, the impact of mental health for those of you who experience racial trauma on a daily basis, we are talking about like the microaggression, racism, discrimination. It really reinforced the feeling of otherness, like, you know, comments such as, where are you really from? Where are you from? Or you must be good at math. You're quite a cute, obedient woman. I can't tell you people are apart. You guys look all the same. You are not really a minority. Like some of these comments could create a cumulative harmful impact for people who feel they don't belong, or this reinforcing the feeling of otherness. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, so these are some evidence of the microaggression, racism, and xenophobia are in fact really harmful, associated with one's having low self-esteem, feeling hopeless, minimizing self-value. Also, the internalization of this negative stereotype would lead to learned helplessness, or the so-called anger or rage as a psychological displacement of grief and pain that masks the emotional wound. And these two down below, the two reference here are the one that happened in 911 in New York City, and some of this Islamic American who reported increased incidence of mental illness, anxiety, depression, and even suicide in the context of discrimination. Next slide, please. So this is some newer report from the CDC who look at the belonging and connectedness. They look at the middle part here, looking at like high school students. 36% of the youth experience racism before and during pandemic. And out of them, 64% are Asian students, and along with 55% of Black and multiple races. And of course, those are the particularly vulnerable, those identified as lesbian, gays, bisexual youth, or female youth reported greater level of poor mental health, emotional abuse by parents or caregiver, or people who have attempted suicide in the past. So this is the vulnerable group during the pandemic in the US. Next slide, please. This is not new as well. Since 1 year from now, we declared a national emergency for children's mental health. It still exists right now. We didn't take away from that claim by 3 professional organizations working with kids, including pediatrician, child adolescent psychiatrists, and children's hospital. And we see even more so in recent months, we have like, financial crisis for many of the hospital system who lay off the frontline worker because of the loss of the pandemic. So like it's really, really in the crisis level. And the picture on the right is really showing that how flooding for the emergency room in the US here, many of the teenager girl, especially aged between 10 to 19, who show up in the emergency room in the context of self-harm behavior and suicide ideation. Next slide, please. When we look about like the over general population, we see a children mental health crisis, and looking at Asian American, even before pandemic, they are 3 times less likely to seek mental health services than overall American by itself. And there are a lot of evidence showing that even pandemic, Asian American youth most typically show up in the emergency room only with really severe mental illness. And they have such a low use of mental health services, regardless of the geography in the US. Regardless of the age, gender, education, or Asian subgroup, it's like an all across the board phenomena. So some reason, a very low utilization of mental health services. And it's also not indicative of the lower need. And in fact, they are actually show higher rates of depression and anxiety. And many of them are contribute to about associated with the cultural belief, acculturation, cultural stigma, and shame, as in which we will talk more about that in the discussion, and also in the skit we illustrate many of that. Not to mention the logistic, insurance, language barrier could be a key factor as well. As I mentioned, the Asian American population is such a heterogeneous group that many of them actually are being overlooked. A lot of people who suffer in poverty, in refugee population in many urban cities in the United States that who struggle a lot in low socioeconomic status to reach services. And also lastly, there are many clinicians who also, like we need our own training to learn more about cultural knowledge, awareness, sensitivity, literacy, and competency, which is really critical to take care of, to provide a cultural informed care for Asian American family. Next slide, please. So these are some, I put together this cultural dimensional concept in working with Asian descent family. So here the message is like not to generalize, like everybody put into the same box. But I think that like knowing about these concepts would really help us to remind ourselves, not to be more culturally understanding and not judgmental when we come across family that embrace this concept. And many of this concept really apply to most Asian descent who identify themselves as East Asian or Southeast Asian. So some of this concept could be Confucianism, which is like talking about humility, hierarchy, harmony versus assertiveness, which is like we see a lot of them when we talk about another concept down here called filial piety. Many of the Asian descent family, the parents are pretty much the law. They define that they set up expectation. They expect the children honor them, respect them, and obedient. When we take care of an immigrant family who have first generation with parents who embrace this concept. However, the second generation of children, they may have totally different concept, different from the filial piety. So you see the cross-cultural, cross-generational difference there when they are talking about reaching out for help or like seeking for mental health services, etc. So knowing this concept will be really important for us to understanding the communication. And here I want to highlight this individualism versus collectivism in family system. Again, like when we talk about immigrant family, individualism perhaps maybe talking about second generational children that like the wellness being the well-being versus like someone who have illness. It maybe seemingly is an individual matters, but for many Asian descent family, apparently because they focus on collectivism, a family system, someone who have mental illness or have their kids who embrace suicide or like LGBTQ gender dysphoria, it may not be a one person matter. It become a whole family matter, a whole community matter, and that kind of sometimes explain why it could be so stigmatized to share this diagnosis or needing to help. And so understanding that again is really important as a clinician. Also another concept here, stoicism, which is like many of the Asian descent families, especially refugee immigrant who come from different places. That's how they cope with adversity, eating bitterness. They feel like, oh, I'm tough it up, I can do this, which is like quite different from what we want to help our patient to understand. We need to ask for help. Asking for help is not a sign of showing weakness. It's not a sign of not eating bitterness. So that concept, if they are so rooted in what they think, and sometimes we can introduce having that concept and understanding into the psychoeducation could be really important there. And of course, lastly, the communication style and language, understanding how they may expressing implicit versus direct or action versus word, which is like this concept we illustrate a lot in our skit later on. We show in many Asian descent family, they express love and care could be very different, like may not be using words, but they may be showing that through action or providing services or things like that as a way to show love and care to the children, things like that. Okay, so next slide, please. So this is just to show that how important it is for family work in terms of helping Asian American youth and family. This data showing this less acculturated Asian American youth, they have higher risk of suicide, in particular in family when they struggle with the child-parent conflict compared to the one that is less acculturated. So many of this work will be centered around family, will be suggesting that could be the case, could be helpful. Next slide, please. So this is like some bullet point I put together that like what might be some best practice for providing cultural informed care for Asian descent children and family. As I mentioned, it needs to be culturally adaptive to what they think, what the core cultural belief, and also we need to be family centered, based on like what we talk about, the collectivism, which is like the center around family and community is critical. And also addressing the acculturative stress of immigration and the acculturative gap in the family, which is like, that when the family embrace more than one culture or talking more than one languages, those should be really taking care of that. And also in intergenerational trauma, which is a topic that really stigma to talk about in Asian descent family. Also acknowledge racism, microaggression, cultural identity development is critical. Addressing gender role, sexual orientation issue apparently is an unimaginable conversation in Asian family, and it become like a double minority as the race and also the gender role become like double minority in this family to navigate the conversation. And also the care should be less stigmatizing if we can, like in which we will introduce some of the platform and innovation that help to create a setting be less stigmatizing so people can feel more comfortable to talk about it. And the last two, really, I think that it is really important is to engage the treatment in the community. Like they try to reach talking about mental health at the level of the community, such as church, such as library, community center, when these families really reach out, ask out for help in the people who have the community. So many of our work actually reach out to churches, reach out to many of these connecting our expertise to where they are in the community, which is very important. And the last point also here, I imagine I'm curious if Brazil also have similar system as well. We involve a lot for the primary care provider. We have a lot of integrated care here. We don't expect Asian family and parents, they knock at the door, I need a psychiatrist to see, it's so stigmatized in a way. They will reach out to see a primary care doctor, like a pediatrician first for anxiety and depression. And over here in the US, we have Access Mental Health, actually. We have on-call service who take calls and questions from primary pediatrician if they have mental health question, and if we can continue the consultation, because family mostly reach out to the primary care doctor. So that in this sense, that is how we get to them to talk about mental health. Next slide, please. So with all of that cultural informed best practice for Asian American family, we started this group called Yale Chat Together. Acronym stand for Compassionate Home, Action Together. We started since pandemic started pretty much 3 years ago. We realized the unique emotional distress in Asian American family, as we all talk about at the introduction. Family conflicts, xenophobic attack, it's just so much stigma for Asian American teens, children, and parents to talk about this issue. So we created this interactive theater as a medium, as a less stigmatized medium, along with many other creative arts, to interface with mental health, to be a platform for the family to talk about mental health. And also we are culturally sensitive as well, where you will see we're weaving a lot of cultural component there, with the goal really to promote healthy child-parent communication and emotional wellness. Really help them, is a prevention model to help them to talk about emotional wellness, just like diabetes and blood pressure, how do we help them to prevent, to take care of our emotion, to have compassion to our emotion as parents, and as child, before they develop into an illness. So that's a prevention model. And again, we want to break the stigma of talking about mental health. And lastly, which is the biggest calling of this group, is like, how do we promote the upward mobility for the next generation of Asian descent leaders in mental health? We need to help to take care of the community. We need more mental health provider who connect to them. So that is another mission of this group as well. Next slide, please. So we have 6 core components as chat together. As the circle, the little funny cartoon we illustrate, we have interactive theater, in which we will live perform once today. And we also have mental health education, research, community peer support, in which we go live perform skit, just like what we will do in the next couple minutes or so. We will engage the community organization to do skit webinar and have discussion about the skit and things like that. We also have collaboration with AAPI, Asian American artists, in a way to many of this work, and also in the mix of creating many of these projects, we also have the mentorship component in it. Next slide, please. So this is an example. I'm going to fly through quickly about the example of each of this arm of what we do. So this is the interactive theater in which we have our member who create a storytelling about their own personal experience and about the child-parent communication. Could be conflicting, could be like really stressful conversation, and we create a skit video and share on social media. And myself here as the moderator, and I know I will later on, Alicia will talk more about how the skit goes, so what exactly the structure and the logistic about the skit production. Next slide, please. And here, like from the skit, there are so many teaching points within the skit, because we weave in a lot of cultural component, psychoeducation from the skit. And here we have many artists in chat together. And so we're trying to create a lot of this education material, a simple, relatable to lay persons, to introduce many of the psychoeducation. For example, here we have 2 artists here, Griffith Vandervoorn and Violet Tan, who actually work at social emotional learning at Yale Child Study Center, who come up with a concept of like many of these communication skills and also psychological concept, and translate that into a more lay language, into more Asian languages, as you see in Chinese and also Korean. And this is imagining yourself in other shoes, is really the lay terminology to describe mentalization, helping parents to think into the shoes of the teens, be curious, non-judgmental, and thinking into the other side using age-appropriate language. So, and again, we share this on social media, is how we build a platform to reach to the community, who are the parents, who are the community people, to learn about this concept about mental health. Next slide, please. This is another example of using less stigmatizing platform to talk about mental health. And Neely Ngo, she is amazing, talented artist who's also a 4th-year medical student, get her degree in public health and from Columbia University. And she's an artist to create graphic novel. And the picture on the left, this is based on a personal story another mental health advocate from the US called Grace Chang, who wrote about her mental health story, about struggling as a teenager who suffered from depression, has thought of suicide, and although on the surface get all straight A's and got to Ivy League college, but deep down she wasn't happy, and her parents know nothing about it. And And so Neely, as an artist, using graphic novel to illustrate this topic, to illustrate this story, and that become, now we're proposing it become like almost like an intervention for people to read about the novel, to talk about it, educate the parents in the community, educate for people who may struggle, just like the character in the comics. So that's one way to show that. Picture on the right is again like using comics to illustrate the concept of mentalization in an immigrant family. So that's again another, like another an artistic way to help translating some of this important concept into through image, word, and dialogue. Next slide, please. So this is the research arm, like just to mention that we also like publish a paper, a lot of scholarship academic project together with a member and as a way in the academia to talk about Asian American mental health. Next slide, please. And here we recently published a foundation paper talking about what Chat Together is, the novel digital program to promote Asian American Pacific Islander mental health in response to COVID-19 pandemic. And so the co-author, many of them are Chat Together member, who some of them are high school student, undergraduate student, medical student, trainees, and some of us like early career psychiatrist or senior career psychiatrist. So it's a cascade of mentorship in this work. Next slide, please. And this is just to show that like this scholarship project we presented in many academic conferences related to mental health, in humanity, in even in arts area. So like in the past 3 years, we presented in a total of almost 30 of them. Next slide, please. This is a showcase about like peer support arm, which is like what I mentioned. We live perform many of the skits connected to community organization. This is the flyer we show our first skit event before we even have the name of Chat Together. This is really special because at the time in New Haven, there are many international students in which many of the family are in China, especially in Wuhan, which is where many of the family are the frontline worker of doctors, nurses who really fighting COVID-19 at the beginning of the pandemic. And so this is an international skit conference, which is what we are doing. And at the time that we created the skit about frontline worker, how they connect with the patient. At the time, everybody got up with the PPE and then how they look at the patient only through the eyes without knowing each other's face. And everybody was sobbing at the webinar. It's so connected. They felt so alone in Wuhan and in here in the United States, and how they connected and feel relief, feeling a safe space connected virtually. That was so meaningful and so profound in that skit webinar. And then if you can press next. And so some of this event, we next also expanding to target audience as parents, like reaching to the community organization. Here we have a United Chinese American, which is a big platform for many of the Asian descent parents there. And so they come to hear our skit webinar and followed by a panel of discussion. And next, please. And this is another example that we also reach to oversee in Hong Kong, and how we reach out the skit webinar internationally. Next slide, next. And this is an example to show how we have the event at church, in Asian church community. And in fact, we have another one coming up in Buddhist temple when they are doing a meditation while we incorporate the Chat Together skit event there. Next. And this is another example. Target audience are the international Asian students for the East Coast. In US East Coast have a lot of boarding school where international students will come visit there. And particularly we have a program there. Many of the international students, they come from the Asia country, which is the majority of them are Asian. They never experienced racism or microaggression of any of that until they came to the United States during the pandemic. And we had a skit webinar with cross boarding school event with this particular population. Next, please. And this is like the next two really kind of tie into the society event happening in the US, like talking about Black Lives Matter in Asian family. Apparently could be controversial, and that stir up a lot of conflict. And we also have a skit event to talk about it with Asian American medical student. Next, please. And this is another event with a society event at that time in US in 2020. There is a Atlanta mass shooting that's supposed to be anti-Asian violence, and about eight of the Asian women were killed at the event. And we have like community outreach, and again, like Chat Together doing a skit event there. Next, please. So this is, I'm going to go through quickly. This is another collaboration that we do with Asian descent artists, with someone in Hong Kong who is a filmmaker. We presented in one of the national conference here, the name called Film Stylo. This filmmaker actually is really creative, like teaching kids, high school students, using the iPhone to make a movie, not just make a TikTok video, but like teaching the high school student how to illustrate, how to practice some of this filmmaking techniques. And so like helping them to use the lens to show the internal world, to show the internal conflicting feelings, and show that to their parents, how to speak their mind using the video. And we have parents to watch that and reflect about it. So this is a cool project about this Film Stylo. Next, please. We also collaborate with artists doing traditional Asian puppet show. And so we do the skit, what we will show. And Abby Liu, who's really one of the talented high school student only, but she has so much experience in shadow puppet in Hong Kong. So like we collaborate now. She is in Princeton University. We just presented a wonderful shadow puppet show, and also illustrating the child-parent communication conflict in this shadow puppet. So just to show another way how we collaborate. So next I pass the time to Alicia to talk about more about skit production, and then we move on to the live performance, which is the most exciting piece. Okay, pass the time to you, Alicia.
Thank you, Dr. Yuan. So just to provide a little more background, the interactive theater component of Chat Together basically incorporates elements of the theater of the oppressed, which was first developed in Brazil in the 1970s by dramatist Augusto Boal. And the theater of the oppressed is sort of a form of interactive theater that's intended to promote social and political change. And it's where spectators become performers and act out solutions to social problems. So it's kind of using theater, the rehearsal of reality. And the Theater of the Oppressed has informed medical education programs, as well as public health initiatives on sexual assault and cancer screening awareness. And just a little more info on the skit production process at Chat Together. Members at Chat Together are able to construct a sort of role play dialogue based on their own child-parent stories. The process incorporates improv and script development, as well as this discussion on how to ensure that there's cultural adaptation and relatability in these skits. And then in addition to acting out these skits, we do video recordings of the skits, and we also perform them at community events, as Dr. Yuan mentioned. And this is to ensure that there's dissemination of these materials beyond just Chat Together members to the larger community. And just sort of as a general structure for a skit from Chat Together, it starts off with a problematic scenario that's then followed by moderation and then an alternative version of the initial scenario. So the moderator co-constructs the skit along with the Chat Together members who are acting as characters in the scene. The moderator helps these characters work towards mentalizing each other's perspectives in the scenario. The moderator also engages the audience by calling out like freeze and replay, which we'll see later during various points of the scene. And that's to sort of encourage more effective communication skills to hopefully work towards some sort of resolution of the initial scenario with better outcomes. So a total of 26 skits have been done, covering a range of topics like COVID-19 related family conflicts, the Black Lives Matter movement, the coming out process for LGBTQ teens, mental health stigma, anti-Asian hate, and also pressures from academic expectations. And a total of 39 Chat Together members have agreed or acted as characters in these skits. And so just to put all of this in context, we want to present to you a skit from Chat Together called Parents with All the Solutions. Elizabeth Lee will be playing the teen daughter Jessica in the scene. Dr. Janie Tao will be playing the mom in the scene, and Dr. Yuan will be serving as the moderator. And just sort of as a little background too for this skit, Jessica is an Asian American teen who is trying to talk with her mom about her depression and also wanting to hurt herself. She's facing a variety of stressors such as cyberbullying, so receiving messages from people, racist messages from people about Asians bringing COVID to the US, being home all the time and not being able to see her friends, watching her parents fight at home, and also dealing with a sick grandparent. So I'll hand it over to you, Dr. Yuan, to moderate.
All right. So thank you. So let's exile from the slide. And at this time, I would invite our audience, I guess from the host side, if we can change to the speaker view, because that matters when we perform the skit. So I will also invite our two actors to change the name to daughter, like Jessica. So that's the actor name, and also mom. And also we have a virtual background to make it more realistic from our role. Yep, I see that Jessica have a teenager role. And also mom, let's see. Mom, are we ready? Okay, great. So let's unmute for the two actors. Are we ready, Jessica and mom? Okay, all right. So there we go. So we know, okay, so Chat Together Theater. Parents with all the solution. Problematic scenario. Action.
Jessica, listen, what's wrong with you? Grandma just told me you're thinking about hurting yourself and you're really sad and you want to see doctor? And there's nothing wrong with you. You don't need doctor. What's wrong?
Mom, like, geez,
What's wrong with you?
I don't know. I've been really sad, okay?
Why? Why are you sad?
Oh my gosh, Mom, stop yelling at me. See, this is why, I don't know. I just don't know, okay? The last couple of months have just been like really stressful. And
Yeah, for all of us.
okay, cool. But like for me, I don't know. I've just been, school's closed. I can't see my friends. I can't go anywhere. And like, I've been getting so much crap online from like these random people. I don't even go to school with them. And these random people just keep harassing me about like the coronavirus. And oh, it's your fault because you're Asian. And like,
Then delete Instagram.
no, I blocked them. I can't delete Instagram because like, I like it. And that's how I talk to my friends. Mom,
Okay, you can call friend, you have phone, and you have a Zoom, and we have free trial.
Mom.
Use the Zoom.
Mom, no one does that. It's so awkward.
Because you are awkward. Oh, okay, I said it. Oh, I have a weird kid. Oh,
Mom, that's so mean. Like, why would you say that? I don't think you'll understand.
Jessica, I just being real. These are your problem. These things make you unhappy. So you need to stop thinking about internet stranger, Instagram. Then you won't be unhappy. Then you don't need to see doctor, okay? Just don't be unhappy.
But Mom, I'm trying. I tried to do that, but it just doesn't work no matter how hard I try. I think it's more than just that. I think I need help.
Okay, I tell you, I help you. Right now, just think. Think there's so many people worse than you. All these poor children in China, no money, no parents, no food, and they work every day and get very little, and they cannot do it. They cannot go to school. They cannot sleep well. But look at you. You have everything, America. Everything. You have food. You have a house. You have a family. Oh, so great. Just think about that. Your life is much better. Happy.
Mom, I know, and I'm very happy that I don't have to.
Oh,
like,
good. See, work.
But Mom, like, it's not just that. It doesn't work. Like,
That's what's wrong with you because you don't try it. Just try
but
it.
Mom, I have tried it and it doesn't help. It doesn't make me happier to know that other people are like suffering. Like, I mean, if anything, it makes me more sad. Like, there's so many
Why?
people.
When I think about something sad, I stop and think, oh, there's people worse than me. Oh, so I'm better. Oh, so happier. Try
Hey,
that.
Mom, yeah, like I know that, and I really appreciate like the house and the roof and like the food, but like like not having to be a child laborer, but like,
Yeah, so nothing to be sad about.
but I'm still like you and Dad. You literally argue all the time, and you're always yelling at me. And like with Grandma getting sick last week, it's just
Wait, but
it's too
she's
much.
better, right? She's better this week. She got a shot. She better.
Yeah, I get that, but I was still scared, and all of it is just too much. I don't know how to.
But there's nothing wrong. You don't need to see doctor. You don't need to think of hurting yourself. There's nothing wrong with you, okay?
Mom, I'm trying to tell you that I need help.
I am helping you. I help you right now. I talk to you. We all love you, okay, Jessica? You'll be fine, okay? Okay, just think happy things. Then don't think hurt yourself. And then no need see doctor. Okay, just try, be happy. Okay?
Mom, you don't. Okay, fine. I'll try.
All right, let's freeze. Let's freeze. Okay, so everybody take some deep breath. That was pretty volatile. Okay, so let's pause and reflect what just happened. Okay, so Jessica, share with us what's happening and how do you feel?
I guess all I wanted at the time was to try and share an experience with my mom and have her try to understand my feelings. But from this conversation, it almost felt like she wasn't listening or wasn't able to hear my perspective and understand where I'm coming from. And that felt almost invalidating.
Mm-hmm. So it's really not validating. It's not being understood, not being heard. How does it make you feel?
It makes me feel like really sad and hopeless because I felt like I was trying to take a big step to find support and to find like some help for the things that I'm going through. But for my mom to react like that, it makes me feel like I should just be fine and I shouldn't even be feeling like this. And I need to just deal with it and be better.
Yeah, this sounds really hard. And so like the sadness and hopelessness that you feel as the result of this conversation. Okay. So let's hold on that thought. I want to hear from Mom as well. Mom, share with us, what do you think what just happened and how do you feel?
Yeah, first, thank you, Dr. Yuan, invite us. We very appreciate it. I brought you some candy. Happy Halloween.
Happy Halloween. Yeah, I want to make sure you're feeling okay, Mom.
Yeah, thank you, Harvard. Oh, you are so smart from Yale. Oh, so good. I feel upset and confused and worried. Jessica seemed like a perfect daughter. Everything do well, she get the A's, and then suddenly I have the feel sad. But she has everything.
Yeah, I hear. It sounds like you feel confused. you're also really worried or terrified. That's shocking for you, isn't it?
Yes,
Okay.
very.
Okay, so that's where we are at right now. I mean, I'm just a moderator. I'm not anyone special. I'm not pro mom or pro Jessica, but I want to just point out some observation that I heard from the conversation. And I want to invite our audience to think together with us that no matter you identify yourself or, of Asian descent or not, but think about this conversation could have happened in your household or in your patient or family you're taking care with, right? So let me point out one observation that's really clear about the communication, about the language, or even verbal or nonverbal being used in the conversation. I just heard many times, I jot down the notes like, what's wrong with you? That's the beginning of the conversation from mom, right? Like if we're talking about an immigrant family with first generation who may be like Asian descent, in terms of like, for example, I know in Chinese, Mandarin or Cantonese, what's wrong with you could mean like pretty neutral, like what is happening, what's going on. But if your exact phrase translate back to English, I don't know in Portuguese may be similar or not, the translation between languages could mean what is wrong with you, with the tone adding on what is wrong with you, and that could deliver different meanings. So I think like sometimes we can be mindful about what we intend to say can deliver into different meanings. So I wonder, Jessica, when mom mentioned what is wrong with you, what does that feel to you?
It feels like she's really like disappointed and mad at me for whatever I'm feeling, because it feels like, yeah, it feels like she's upset with me because it feels like I've done something wrong and something is wrong with me. And I think that's like a really hard feeling because she's my mom and I feel like she's someone that I like want to make proud and like can even seek approval from. So when she says what's wrong with me, it makes me feel really badly as a person.
Yeah, it feels like almost mean like that is something is wrong from the person, but not something that's wrong about the situation. It kind of feel like that, like, right? Like when you internalize the feeling like that. Okay, mom, like I know we don't imagine that is what you meant. I wonder when you say what is wrong with you, what did you intentionally want to mean? Like, because like you sounded really terrified and worried and shocked. What was going on? What were you trying to say?
I tried to ask more information so I can solve. She said something wrong, so I asked what is wrong. Then you tell me what the problem, then we can fix.
Yeah, okay. So I'm glad we got to talk because we need to translate. It sounds like mom was thinking, what is the problem? So she can fix. So her mind is thinking how to help you by fixing the problem. It sounds like, yeah, if I understand it. So I think that kind of expand to another observation as well. So so the skit title called Parents with All the Solutions. So, parents, we always want, myself as a parent as well. We want the rainbow, the star, the best for our child. We want to help. Yes, I totally see that, mom. Like Jessica, sounds like you are reaching for help. You want mom's help. Mom give you a solution, but something is missing in the conversation, in the communication. What do we think what is missing? Jessica, is that something mom can add in the conversation that can help you feel better if she also before she provide you some solution?
I just wish she like expressed that she cares or that she understands where I'm coming from and what I'm feeling. Like sometimes I feel like she tells me what to do and she just tells me to do something, but she doesn't really get why I'm feeling something or how I'm feeling, and then she just tells me to do something, and I feel like what she tells me isn't gonna work, so then we get into an argument.
Yeah, I see. So it sounds like you are looking for some understanding, some listening, right? Some validating. Like it feels really hard to have someone who says something really awkward from the internet and things like that. You want mom to be on your side, yeah, before telling you a solution. Okay, so I guess we can talk more in the discussion. So if that is also one thing like we want to talk about too from the skit, it seems like Jessica wanted to seek out for help, to see a doctor who take care of depression, anxiety, and feelings, and mom seems to be hesitated about that idea. What is holding you back?
Oh, Dr. Yuan, I know people. I hear about people who go see a doctor and they become crazy. And then they disappear and no one hear about them, see them. And I cannot let my only daughter disappear and be crazy. She's not crazy.
Yeah. We never use that terminology, Mom. I imagine maybe like that could be, like some experience in the past or like misunderstanding about what we do as mental health provider. I wish we could do a better job to explain what mental health could be. Like I imagine like that's something, this topic is big, like we should talk more about this in the panel discussion. But from what I usually say to help family and parents to understand about mental health, it's like, I wish we could be like having a almost mental health is almost like a managing our blood pressure or managing our blood sugar level before we need to take medication to take care of those issues. How do we have compassion to take care about our emotional wellness before we turn into illness, before we turn into something really severe? So we are helping Jessica to build a stronger mind, a stronger brain to help her to succeed in life. It sounds like Jessica is such a bright kid to do so many things in her life. So I keep that conversation and we can talk more in our discussion. We have many more brains on this talk, so that we'll have more answer for you. Okay, before we go to the alternative scenario, if there's one thing, Jessica, what do you want mom to change so you feel you're more supported?
I wish that when we talked, that she wouldn't yell at me and that she would be more supportive almost. And yeah, I just really wish when we talked, we didn't get into an argument and start yelling at each other.
Okay, so like sounds like you want mom to be more calm, expressing the scary, anxious feeling, maybe like less so, then so she can be more attuned to understand. Okay, Mom, if there's one thing you want Jessica to change before we have this conversation again, what would that be?
Okay, I want Jessica know I'm on her side. We all love her. And sometimes I say not right thing or do not right thing, and then she say I'm not on her side. But I do so much for her already every day. I feed her, I pay for school fees. That's so expensive. And she say I don't love her. Well, this is not fair.
Okay. So you want Jessica to think more in your shoes, perhaps like to understand that you express love and care through caring, paying the attention, spending time, making meal, cook food for her. So it's a form of love and care. Yeah. Okay. So we're doing some translation here. That's all. Okay. All right. So are we ready for alternative scenario? All right. Alternative scenario. Action.
Jessica, what's wrong with you? No, what's happening with you? I heard from Grandma you're thinking hurt yourself and you're unhappy and you want to see doctor. What's wrong?
Oh my gosh, I didn't think Grandma was going to tell you. Mom, I just, do you actually want?
Yeah, I want to know what's wrong. Tell me.
Do you actually want to know what's wrong with me? Like,
Yeah, I'm so busy. If I don't want to know why I ask you.
to yell at me more because you always yell at me because I'm never good enough.
Oh,
Like, I don't
no.
know.
I don't yell at you because you're not good enough. I yell because I help you feel better.
Oh my gosh, Mom, I don't know. I don't know what's wrong, and that's why I can't feel better. That's the problem. I've just been really, really sad, okay?
You've been sad?
Yeah, for a long time now, and it's gotten so much worse with the pandemic and staying at home all the time. And I've been getting bombarded by all these random people on Instagram, and they're telling me that like it's all my fault the coronavirus is here, like the Chinese virus. And when I've been staying inside all day.
Delete the Instagram. I don't have Instagram. I don't get messages. My life happier. I don't get bad feeling.
Mom, it's not Instagram's fault. It's the people's fault.
I give you
No,
solutions.
Mom, you're not listening.
Why?
Mom, I don't think you understand how stressful it's been being home all the time. Like, you and Dad are always fighting, and you're always yelling at me. And just with Grandma getting sick last week, like.
Okay, Grandma, fine now. Grandma better.
But Mom, you asked me what's wrong. Like, do you want to know? Do you actually want to listen to me? Because like, I don't really feel like you're listening to me right now. It just feels like every time I try to say something, you just try to tell me why I'm wrong.
Okay.
But
Okay.
it makes me feel like what I'm feeling isn't real.
Yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay. I want to listen to you. I want to listen what's wrong. I don't want to be unhappy. But I don't want you to see doctor.
Okay, Mom, but I think I need to see a doctor. Like, I'm really sad right now, and there's a whole field of medicine that exists for this. And it's like not fake. It's not just crazy people who need this help or whatever. It's like I get really sad and then I don't know what to do after that. And so it makes me want to hurt myself sometimes. And I don't know how to not feel that way. Like, I don't want to feel that way.
Okay.
Like, honestly, Mom, like, I didn't want to talk to you about it because I didn't think you'd understand or want to do anything about it. I just told Grandma because it like got to a point where it just came out like I needed help and I didn't know what to do, and like she was just there, so I told her.
Okay. I know you trust Grandma a lot, and the Grandma loves you, and she worries, so that's why she told me. Grandma think you should see doctor, okay? But you know, I never heard about I just hear about people kill themselves because they're crazy, and I can't think you like that. You're not crazy. But okay, maybe Instagram and the COVID, all this, maybe it's bothering you too much. And okay, maybe Mom not think about how you feel from your perspective.
Mom, like, I don't even know what's wrong with me. Like, I know that I have like a roof over my head and all these things, but even with all of that, I still can't feel happy. And that makes me feel even more sad. Like, I feel like I should be happy, but I'm just not.
Yeah, I don't know what's wrong either. But I worry about you. Okay, let's figure out together, okay? We make an appointment with doctor, and I talk to Grandma, and we go together with you, okay?
Okay, thank you, Mama. I love you.
Okay, no need say too much.
All right, so that's the end of our skit. Like, thank you, Jessica and Mom. That is amazing. So I will pass the time to you, Alicia.
Yeah, that was really, really good. Just moving on now to the next portion, we wanted to open up the floor for our panelists to hopefully learn a little bit more about patients of Asian descent across the continents in both the US as well as Brazil. So yes.
Yeah, I guess we can let's get out of the PowerPoint slide so we can see each other. Yeah. So I guess okay. Yeah, Deborah, like take on the baton, please.
Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you, Dr. Eunice, for your presentation. Thank you, Chat Together team. So many new information and insight. Would like now to invite Paulina to make some comments, and then Lucian.
Hey, hello, it's a pleasure to be here. I was so astonished with the invite because this is a topic that I'm very passionate about. I work around it because of my experience and my peers. This is not my field of study. I actually work with climate emergency, so quite different topic. But I want to touch base on 3 points that Professor Eunice made this morning. The first one being the stereotypes, the second one that we are part of a diasporic community, and the third one around the barriers of finding mental health services. I think the first one, the stereotypes, it's the same here in Brazil, the model minority and how it affects our own community and how we perceive ourselves, and the idea that we create of what we should be and what we should not be. And I think adding to that layer, there is also the stereotypes on the Asian women in general, that they are quiet, delicate, and they're obedient. And that adds a lot in our own behavior and the way we perceive and talk about ourselves. And of course, the way people perceive us, there is a lot of research showing how, in general, porn is related to Asian women, right? So in that sense, around 5 years ago, we started this Michoso, is a community of Korean diasporic people that we start reinventing the notion about our body and the way we perceive ourselves. Nowadays, this evolved, and with the past 5 years, so much has happened. And nowadays, we revisit a lot of memory notions, and we try to build a lot of work within our community. The second topic that's around us being a diasporic community, I think it took me a while to understand that I'm not just a migrant. My parents came here because they were running away from war. They are coming from a very traumatic experience. Although I grew up in a very violent family, they also did. This is not just my trauma, it's an intergenerational and transgenerational trauma. And adding a layer to that, there is a difficulty because there is first a lack of knowledge about our past. Here in Brazil, we are not taught about the history of Asian countries and their disputes, the wars. And the second thing is that our parents are so traumatized that they don't want to talk about it. So whenever we ask them about their own stories, they're like, we are too busy for that. We don't have time to that. They're very into the survival mode that they never revisit their own memories and their own feelings. And the third one around the barriers to access the mental health service, I think there's definitely the language, the cultural, but also the financial barrier. Most of our community, although there is a stereotype that we are doing well in the terms of economic perception of the Asian community in Brazil, we are a big part, we are migrants, we are here to survive in adversities. We don't speak the language. We are definitely not doing the well-paid white-collar jobs. And that sense, there is this barrier, economically barrier, that we never talk about. And adding to that, there's the language. So drawing about my own family, my mom, she's around 76 now. She is very concerned about her existence in the world. She feels it's quite meaningless, and definitely she does not have access to someone that speaks her own language. She knows her own story to talk about it. And of course, I am a daughter. I cannot be a mental health practitioner that helps her. And there is no one actually in this city that could somehow support her through her journey. and that is in a place that nowadays I can afford some help for her. So it's been a very difficult discussion at home. And of course, some practitioners from South Korea would not be the same, because that person also does not understand what means to be here. I really like one poem, and I want to just read it for you, because I think it explains quite the feeling that we all have. It's written by Iojoma Umebiayu, and it's called Diaspora Blues. And it is: so here you are, too foreign for home, too foreign for here, never enough for both. And I think that's the feeling we all carry. It doesn't matter if you are a first-generation migrant or a second, it never quite feels like you belong to the place you are occupying. And this morning, I learned so much, and I think there is a huge potential for us to work together in the future as well. I'm also part of Casa do Povo. That's a cultural center that we love revisiting memory. It's actually started as a Jewish community school. So it's a Jewish cultural center, and it is located also in the Korean community. So we do a lot of work together. So I hope one day we can also bring this practice to this Korean neighborhood. That's also nowadays home to a lot of migrant communities. And I think we all face the same traumas. It doesn't matter where we are coming from. So thank you so much.
I'd like to invite Luciana to make some comments.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Thank you for the invitation. I saw the presentation was very interesting and very rich. I myself learned a lot. And also Paulina, I thought your contribution was amazing. So I think we have a nice team here to discuss and make a nice conversation. Well, I'm not Asian, although I'm married to a half Japanese man. Well, listening to you guys, it was quite interesting to hear about his own experiences or think about his own experiences, because something that is quite common in Brazil is that everyone who is Asian, they call, or at least in São Paulo, they call it a Japanese. So the nickname is Japa. So everywhere he goes, his nickname is Japa, anywhere. And but even if you are Chinese or Korean, sometimes your nickname is Japa. It doesn't matter where you are. So hearing about the microaggressions, and this is something that is so normal in our society, I think that it's a different way of looking at that. Well, but yeah, just a little bit of personal background. But I thought about talking about the method that you guys use, and how that is interesting, culturally adapting it, but also the use of art. That I think it has a lot of power in that sense. Something that we hear a lot about, actually, so my personal experience as a psychiatrist, it's more with Japanese descendants. And we have a richer literature in Brazil about Japanese descendants and psychological aspects, either for migrating back to Japan to work and then coming back to Brazil, people that in Brazil, they are characterized as Japanese, but when they go to Japan to work, they discover that they are Brazilian, they are not Japanese, and this kind of identity shifts. And then when they come back to Brazil, there is also a more mixed identity. So this is usually the public that I get in contact with. And something that people talk about a lot is the difficulty about naming feelings and talking about feelings. There's even a Japanese descendant that is an anthropologist that works with us, and she has been studying mental health of Brazilian Japanese descendants in Japan. And she says that it's the idea of having individual psychotherapy is very strange for some people. And she herself, she says that even for her, it's quite difficult to be in a place with someone you don't know and try to talk about feelings. So when you guys showed the sketch, and these two Asian women being able to translate their feelings, I thought that maybe it wouldn't be a situation that we would see in real life in that way, built in that way. But I was thinking about the impact on someone that relates to that situation, but probably doesn't know how to name everything that is going on. So that's why I thought it was a very powerful sketch, and it has a lot of potential to help people, although maybe you won't ask people, but it will be something that they will go home thinking about, that how they would reproduce that in their own homes, or something that he or she felt. Maybe that's what that girl said that communicates, or that's what's going on with me. So I thought that was very interesting. And the use of art also allow us to talk about difficult things in a lighter way. So although, I mean, the sketch, in some points, sometimes the mom was quite funny. So it was nice to be able to see something that it's so difficult, but it also gives you a different feel. And for example, when you guys showed the comic book, or the comic about the girl, and her own experience, I think it's a great way to talk about these things, but not be associated with psychiatry or mental health practitioners, and do something more formal, or even, and in that sense, since we have a lot of stigma now, it's not a way of talking about that being associated with us that has a lot of negative stigma. So I mean, I think that's what I thought it would be my contribution.
Thank you, Luciana, and thanks so much, Jamie, Elizabeth. I think that the theater is a great form, a great way to express that feelings that sometimes it's hard to talk about, and it's very educate way to show how can we deal with some problems, familiar problems, or cultural problems or questions. So I think it was very fun and very educative. So I want to thank you so much for the presentation. Eunice, I really loved the method that you have used here in our meeting, and I also think that it's very useful for us, and we can think in this method to expand it. And I was thinking that and in child psychiatry, it's very, very useful. It's very, I'm not mom, but I think that for our parents, it's very hard to explain and educate us. So I think that it's a great way to learn. So thanks so much. Deborah, would you like to say something? No? Professor? So thanks so much, everyone who's participating, all your team, Alicia, Elizabeth, Jamie, Julio, Eunice, Luciana e Paulina.
Have less comment. Okay.
Of course.
I don't know. Okay. Hi, sorry. Just a last comment is an invitation. I think you're right. Art is such a powerful form to revisit our own feelings, and we are very. I call myself emotionally illiterate, so it's always good to have art as a media. And in that term, there's a book called Crying in H Mart, written by Michele Zauner, and it was recently translated to Portuguese, Aos Prantos no Mercado. And the book launch will happen next month on the 5th at the Cultural Center I've been talking about. So please, I think it's a great book to understand where we are coming from. So, and I will welcome you all to join the book launch. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you, everyone. Thank you for the people who's here at our meeting, and I hope we could keep in contact. And thank you so much, everybody. So,
Yeah, thank you. I guess do we have other people who have more comment, question?
I have one quick comment, Dr. Yuen, about something that really calls my attention, especially on the figure of the psychiatrist, your role in the sketch, which is maybe a great take-home message. My first impulse when I'm seeing the mom in the sketch is judgment, intervention, impulsivity. It's like I really want to shake this mom by the head and say, hey, you're completely off here. What you're doing to your daughter, that's not right. And when we let ourselves think that initial impulsive moment, we may miss an opportunity to connect with that mother and really reach her where she is and make a meaningful intervention. Sometimes especially in these very political times where, let's be honest, everyone is so tense, if we miss an opportunity to actually try to connect with the other person where they are, even though we are seeing behaviors that we don't like and opinions that we don't like, we actually miss the opportunity to build a bridge and make the intervention. So I love the figure of the psychiatrist in the sketch because it takes mom, and instead of judging her or assuming that she's doing something wrong to the daughter, actually invites her to express what she really means by the phrases that she's using. And I feel that we should be using that more in our daily lives, not only in our child and adolescent patients. Those are my 2 cents for today.
That's awesome. Jenny, you have anything to respond?
Yeah, thank you. So I think that's, I mean, that response that you mentioned, I definitely resonate with that. You know, when I see parents and I want to just confront them. And also, I really appreciate being part of this sketch because of it's also very personal to me. Like when I was going through mental health experiences, my mom in some ways acted in a similar way where there was a lot of stigma and confusion, and she thought she knew how to fix things. And we got into a lot of arguments. So it's definitely, I think that initial gut reaction is a lot of people probably have. So thank you for sharing.
Jamie? Oh, sorry. Well, thank you again for this great time together, and I hope we see you soon.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having us. We definitely will keep in touch. That is like such a great opportunity to exchange ideas. Really enjoy this. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.